This is going to be an exciting journey because together we're going to partner with God to see what he's going to do in our church and our church family. So here's our big idea. Just write this down. Jesus built a bridge to me. That's what we're going to talk about today. Jesus built a bridge. Why do people build physical bridges? And normally a bridge is constructed because you want to go from one side to the other. There's either a river, a canyon, some type of impediment that you can't get over to the other side. And people want to get to the other side because maybe they work there, you have family over there. Maybe you're traveling to that other side. You need to connect. So bridges connect one side to the other. And sometimes they're over dangerous mountain passes and stuff like that. When I was 10 years old, my parents took me to the Royal Gorge in southern Colorado. Anybody been there? So it's 900 feet. It's the highest bridge in America. And at the time, it had wood planks with a space in between the wood planks that you'd walk across or drive across back then. And I was 10 years old, and my parents took me there. And there's a sign that says, "Do not throw rocks from bridge." That's bad for a 10-year-old to read a sign like that. It's just like an open invitation, right? So when nobody was looking, I took a rock and dropped it between those slats of in the bridge and watched it disappear down below. So anyway, no rock throwing from there. But bridges just kind of are a metaphor to me. I've always felt this way, that we can view Jesus as connecting us with God as well. It's just compelling to me when I think about the enormous chasm between myself and God that Jesus bridged. You know, for thousands of years, people have done all kinds of things to try to reach God. They've rolled up their sleeves and tried to build their own bridge to God out of their own good works or other kind of systems as well, but it doesn't work. It just fails every time. And so God took the initiative, and he sent Jesus. And he sent Jesus to bridge the gap between ourselves and God. And that gap is simply this, that Jesus Christ died and he rose again. And everybody who puts their faith in the living hope of Jesus has eternal life. And that's what we want to talk about in the next 4 weeks, that everyone who walks across that bridge has eternal life. And here's the thing. Once you've done that, God gives you the responsibility. God gives you kind of this mission to build bridges to other people as well. Jesus was a carpenter. He was living as an adult in Capernaum. That was kind of his home base. He'd been teaching and healing people and building relationships. And then on one particular day, we're going to read what happens when he calls his very first disciples. So if you have a Bible, turn to Matthew chapter 4. And I've been saying this just nonstop, but you know the difference between studying the Bible and reading the Bible. And I have a pen inside my Bible. I can't find it. Here it is, right here, a pen. And so if you got a pen, start marking up your Bible. Here we go. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." That's the bridge building part. Are you catching what's going on here? He's building a bridge to them, and then he's going to teach them how to do it. Okay. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in the boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and they immediately left the boat and their father and followed him. Peter, James, and John, fishing was everything to them. It was their career. It was their livelihood. It was probably the most, let's just think about it, most predominant thing in their life would be this fishing industry. And Jesus comes and he's walking along the Sea of Galilee and he just interrupts their lives. I don't know about you, but it seems like Jesus interrupts my life a lot. There can just be interruptions. And every time I have an interruption, I have to stop and think, is this a Jesus kind of interruption in my life? So Jesus had probably had many conversations with Peter and Andrew and James and John before this point. It's not like a cold sales call. Hey, you don't know anything, but follow me. It's not like that. They had probably seen Jesus teach. They had conversations with Jesus as well. And he said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men, fishers of people. Write this down. Number one, Jesus invites me to follow. That is still true today. Jesus is calling people to follow after him as well. Here's what makes this text so radically different. In the first century, a rabbi would never ask somebody else to follow them. In fact, a Greek philosopher, anybody in that Roman cohort of education in the first century, never, ever asked people to follow them. It was the other way around. The student would ask the teacher, can I follow you? What's so radical about this is that Jesus does it backwards, like he does a lot of things, right? And he grabs their attention and he says, I want you to come and follow me. This is what it reminds me of. A bullet point to write down, personal relationship. He's inviting them to a personal relationship. It's just not a professor-student. It's more than that. It's a personal relationship with the Savior of the universe. And Jesus will spend the next 3 years with 12 core disciples. They're going to be traveling together. They're going to be eating together. They're going to be listening to Jesus teach. They're going to watch Jesus do many miracles, walk on water, feed the 5,000, cure people of leprosy. They're going to see all kinds of things. In fact, they're going to be eating with Jesus and they're going to tell stories together. Can you imagine sitting around with Jesus for 3 years and then you want to tell him a joke and he knows the punchline before you say it? He's God, right? So he's going to know the punchline before you say it. And Jesus, if you're around him, maybe he had a unique belly laugh. Jesus probably liked to laugh. He liked those stories. So one of the disciples come at Jesus. Do you know what you call it when Batman skips church? Jesus already knows the punchline, but he's going to laugh anyway. The punchline is this. You call it Christian Bale. Yeah, that was bad, right? So Jesus, he says, ha, 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 that was so funny, but he knew the punchline right ahead of time because he's God, right? So Jesus, he spends 3.5, some of you are like Googling that already, I can tell over there. So Jesus is with them 3 years. They will learn from him. They will see him pray. They will see Jesus heal broken people. They will see Jesus confront the Pharisees. Now then, they spent 3 physical years of Jesus getting to know him. And you and I had the privilege of, once we cross the line of faith, we're going to walk with him for many years. 3 years, 30 years, for the rest of your life. It's called a personal relationship, is what God is calling you into. That you can know him personally and grow in your walk with him. Here's the other thing about the invitation. We have to make a personal decision about it. James and John, Peter and Andrew, Matthew, all those other disciples, they had to make a decision. What will I do with Jesus? They had to make a choice. They could have decided yes, they could have decided no. Just like all of us today. We can say yes to Jesus, or we can say no to Jesus. And some people say, well, maybe I need to think about it as well. But Jesus is calling individuals to follow him, and it's going to turn your life upside down. Once you begin this journey of following Jesus, it's transformative. Everything will be different to you along the way. They traveled with Jesus all of that time, learning from him. Now, so the 12 had to follow Jesus together, and that's what we're doing today as a church. We're in the spiritual growth campaign, Bridges. And this room is even more full in the first service. And there's lots of people here. But together, we're striving after the same goal together as well. Even though we're so diverse. There's just a lot of different thoughts and actions out here and mentalities and backgrounds all throughout our church. Just think about those original 12 disciples. You got Peter. Do you know his nickname in the Bible? Motor Mouth. Turbo Lips. He wouldn't stop talking. He was a little volatile at times too. In fact, at one time, they go to arrest Jesus. He pulls out a Swiss Army knife, chops the guy's ear off. The soldier. Jesus said, put that away, Peter. And puts the ear back on him, heals that guy right then. So that was Peter. He's always kind of high strung, right? He's always talking. He's always talking. Now, his brother Andrew, in the Bible, he didn't say much. In fact, you kind of want to poke him with a stick. Do you say anything? Do you talk? Do you know why he doesn't talk? Because Peter's his brother. His brother took all the air out of the room growing up. He has no reason to talk, right? So that's Peter. And then you have John, the disciple. He's the person at the Last Supper sitting next to Jesus and, kind of this mellow kind of guy we're thinking about. He's the disciple who really loved Jesus. But man, at times he could go, whew. In fact, they were at this one village one time of Jesus, and John didn't like the response. He said, Jesus, call down fire and obliterate them. Well, that's very compassionate, isn't it? Just destroy them. And so John could be that way. That's why his nickname in the Bible is Son of Thunder. He's the guy that had a leather jacket and racing stripes on his camel. He was just really, really that kind of a disciple, right? So they're all pretty different as well, okay? They're just very, very different. Then you have Thomas. We call Doubting Thomas. He was the skeptic. Jesus rose from the dead? I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. Then he goes, oh, my Lord and my God, it's true. Right? He's a skeptic. That's a very different mentality. And then you have Matthew. There's another disciple. He was a tax collector. He worked for the IRS. He was hated by everybody. And in the first century, if you were a Jewish tax collector, you were considered a traitor. They would want to execute you for that, because he's gouging Jewish people to give their money to the Roman government. How's that? But yet Jesus comes and calls him to follow. And then you have somebody else on the exact opposite end of that political spectrum. It's Simon the Zealot. So Simon's the guy who organizes the revolt and wants to kick the Romans out. Matthew's the guy that's trying to give them a bunch of money so they stay. Two opposite people. Very opposite. So when they're following Jesus, Jesus made sure they shared a pup tent together. Jesus has a sense of humor. He knows how this is going to work out. Very diverse. Here's the thing. When we take all of our different skills and talents and mindsets and personalities, there's a big difference in personality, right? Just across the spectrum of church. But when you put it all together and you strive after a mission, it's incredible. When I was 33, I had open heart surgery. And I had a hole between my upper chambers of my atrium and atria. And so they cracked me open in those days. I guess they don't do it that way anymore. And stitched it shut. Turned off my heart, the whole works. And some of you thought I had a hole in my head. It was actually a hole in my heart. But so anyway, so I'm sitting there in a hospital, and this lady comes in, Allison. She goes, oh, Steve, I'm so sorry. She grabs my hand and she starts crying in my room. And she has the gift of mercy. She's a mercy person. And then another person comes in and starts straightening out everything, and got to get the flowers over here and the cards and all this kind of stuff. That person has a gift of organizing things. And then I got a guy come in. I'll never forget this. I would say he has the gift of exhortation. So he took out his Bible. He goes, Steve, I got a Bible verse for you. And I said, okay. And he opens up to 1 Chronicles. So let's turn to 1 Chronicles. I'm like, okay. I wonder what, are you going to read me the genealogy of the tribes of Israel? Or what's going to happen here, But he found something encouraging, right? So that was his gift. And then because we were in the ditch financially that time, another guy comes over to our house and writes a check, $500, right? It's the gift of the gift of helping and serving others as well. So I'm lying there in the hospital bed, and all of the personalities and gifts of the people of God were at work. That's what happens when all of us rally together and do the mission that God has given to us as well. Okay, we're not alone in following. It's a team effort. We are a team of bridge builders because we have crossed the line of faith, the living bridge of Jesus. And now we together have the incredible mission and vision to build bridges of hope to people in our community, people who are far away from Jesus. We have the incredible privilege of telling people the good news about Jesus Christ, but we're doing it together. Number 2, write this down. Followers become netless. I read the text, and I've read the story so many times, and I'm still shocked about they dropped their nets because that was their signifying their careers, their lives. They probably had their identity in their fishing business. Make no mistake about it. They were commercial fishermen. That's how they made their living. They caught fish and sold fish in the market, and they gave up their careers to follow after Jesus. And not only was it Peter and Andrew, but it was James and John, who are actually cousins as well. And so they dropped everything and followed Jesus. And some of you might be thinking, Pastor Steve, are you telling me I need to quit my career and follow Jesus? And my answer is, I'm not telling you that. But maybe Jesus wants you to, and maybe he doesn't. I don't know. And if your career is violating your integrity and compromising honesty, then yes, you need to ditch your career if it's causing you to skirt on the truth. I have a friend. He owns he owns a couple businesses, a trucking company in the state of Washington. And we went together to a mission trip in Central America, and it changed his life. So he gets home and he goes, I think I want to go to language school. I want to learn Spanish. So he puts his company, gives it to he allows some of the key employees to run the business. He goes for 3 months and he immerses himself with his wife and kids into Spanish language school. And then he comes back home and then he said, I'm just gonna move there. Move there? What happened to you, man? He goes, I'm going to move there. And so because he moves there, he helps plant churches all over Central America. He helps construct churches all over Central America. He brings Christian leaders to the United States and pays for their training to get more biblical training. Okay? So he does this for 20 years. So I remember I was with him a couple years ago, and I said, hey, are you looking forward to the day, you kind of turn over your company to the kids or you sell it? Or he goes, are you kidding me, man? My business is my ministry. And he'd made that shift in his head, that followership, following Jesus, and merging it with his career because he saw how it built bridges. That's what it means to be netless. That is what it means when we view our career in terms of followership as well. A net is anything in life that inhibits or prohibits my commitment to following Jesus. I made a list of what those things might be. One might be people. Maybe it's people. Maybe your net is somebody in your life that, quite frankly, is dragging you down. Maybe it's a person in which, it's not helping you follow Jesus. And yet you need to maintain a connection with them, and you're struggling with that tension. Hey, this isn't really helping me, and I need to draw some boundaries here as well. Okay? And maybe it's important because there's somebody in your life you don't like right now either. Right? And you got to deal with that. Maybe it's a person, and maybe it's that. Here's another thing, things. Maybe we're so absorbed in our culture that celebrates the worth and value of material possessions, we seem to think we just got to accumulate everything that we can, and that's success as well. Some people think if I just become a follower of Christ, I'll have to give up maybe this, when actually it's everything. I'm still a little miffed after 30 years about something that happened in my life. I guess I should let it go. Here's what happened. I was a youth pastor many years ago. I had a whole bunch of high school kids to take somewhere. And we had one bus, it wasn't enough. I got some vans, still wasn't enough. I needed to start borrowing more vans. And I remember asking this couple who had 2 kids in my high school group, can we borrow your van to go on this trip over the weekend? And they said, no. Oh. I said, why? Because because they'll make it dirty. I said, yeah, they will. I said, but somebody will vacuum it out for you. No, we're not loaning it because they'll just make it dirty and kids smell, and we just don't want it smell in our van. It just really ticked me off because here's why. Everything I own belongs to Jesus. Everything. And so from that moment on, Mary and I decided every time the youth group or anybody else needs to borrow one of our vehicles, we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. And because it's not my stuff. It's not my stuff. It all belongs to God. So sometimes just grabbing onto things causes that. Here's another thing. Plans and dreams can be, things we need to drop. Maybe your plan, maybe for some of you, your plan is to be a doctor. You're going to be a medical doctor. It's a great goal, be a medical doctor. But maybe God has a better plan for your life. Like I said last week, you have a plan. God has a better plan for your life than your plan. You need to ask, what is that plan? God, what do you want me to do? One of my former students, she graduated University of Washington, then she went to med school, I think University of Chicago, I don't remember which one, is really smart. I mean, she's really smart. So she finishes her medical degree. You know what she does with it? She becomes a children's pastor at a church. Like 6 or 7 years. She never let her medical license lapse. And you know what she does today? She's a medical missionary in a country I can't tell you about. Yeah. That's where you see, hey, my career can really overlap with what God wants to do. Here's another thing that may need to drop is my attitude. You hold on to negativeness or cynicism as well. Somebody quoted John Wesley to me the other day, and I really love John Wesley from history. Work as long as you can and make as much as you can to give it all away. Never retire. Yeah, that's a great attitude to have. Money could be something you need to let go of. Here's the thing. If you love money more than you love Jesus, you will cut every possible corner to get more of it. And then you'll justify it in your mind. You will. I was going to show you a picture. It's a little too graphic for this spiritual audience. And it's from the first century. And in Pompeii, they were doing some excavations about 20 years ago. And that's where that big volcano erupted and just pulverized a city like that, Pompeii. And they excavate because people, they were just kind of frozen in time. The heat and the ash just dumped on that place, and people died within minutes. And so they can see where people are trying to run away from the volcano, and they collapse and die. And one of the pictures is a woman. And she's running away from the volcano. And she's clutched in her hand her diamond necklace and all the gold. And she's not going to make it. But you know what she's clutching onto? Her money. And sometimes we just need to let that go as well. Here's another one, secret sins. What are your nets? Sometimes we just need to tell God what those secret sins are because He already knows. He wants you to come clean about it. Lord, I'm struggling with this addiction. Lord, I got this issue in my life. And then don't tell me. I'm not the one that gives you forgiveness. It's Jesus. So you bring it to God. Bring it to God. And then what I would suggest that you do is that you tell one other person. And I've been struggling with this. Somebody that you trust. Somebody that won't judge you. Somebody that will say, I'll just pray with you about that or cry with you about that. Or if you want me to ask you about it from time to time, I'll do that. So we got to think in terms of being netless, quick and agile in our faith, following Jesus with all intensity. Now then Peter, James, John, and Andrew, they're fishermen. And just think, what if they said no to the call and they spent the next 10 years, the next 20 years fishing? Okay, nothing wrong with fishing. God loves fishermen as long as they're dry fly fishermen, I think. But anyway, so they're going to spend the next 30 years gutting fish and having a fish smell all the time. Okay, nothing wrong with that, but they're going to spend the next 30 years adopting the mission of Jesus and turning the world upside down because that's what those disciples did. Make no mistake, historians across the board are like, why did the Roman Empire fail? Well, because the values of Christianity began to be ingrained into the culture around them. And the culture around them was so opposite of that as well. They transformed the world. Number 3, building bridges is the first step in the mission. Once you accept the invitation to follow Jesus, you drop your nets, whatever those are in your life, then he gives you the assignment to build bridges of hope to other people. You're connecting people to Jesus, building hope, bridges of hope to the hopeless. Celebrate Recovery at our church is thriving. You saw it on the video, and I was there for a little while Friday night, but it's just incredible. I remember telling them, I said, don't have your hopes up. You might work at it for 6 months and have 10 people at the end of the 6 months. Boy, was I wrong. 6 weeks into it, they got 50, 60 people showing up for Celebrate Recovery. Lots of people from the community, all on a Friday night. You should volunteer and help. Just a few days ago, I think it was on Wednesday, we had a public school down the street ask us to come and help with something. A request to a church to help a public school? Yeah, that's what we do. Why? Because we've been building a bridge to the public school. Our church is functioning like a base camp. Just think of that. Bridges are people go from one side to the other. It's kind of like this base camp where people come, you're here, you're getting energized, you're worshiping together, we're learning together, and then we're going out. It's kind of like a base camp. Think of it that way. You probably already know that the term gospel, that term in the Bible means good news. And it was used to people having a baby or announcing a marriage or announcing a victory. And actually, they would pay people to go and announce the good news throughout the streets. And they would do that in that first century culture. We have the good news. Jesus Christ came. He died on a cross, and he came back to life. We call that a resurrection. And everybody who believes in him has eternal life. Why would we sit on that? Can you answer me that? Why would we not make every effort to build bridges to people in our community? He didn't want us to keep it to ourselves. Now, Jesus used the term fishers of people and, go fish for people because those guys were fishermen. Made all the sense to them. And I wrote down 3 things that good fishermen will do. They go to where the fish are biting. Makes sense. I've been fishing here with some guys, and they have fish finders. Very helpful. You go to where the fish are, right? Do you know where the fish are biting right now at Grace Community Fellowship? They're biting in our Celebrate Recovery program. The room is so full, we can't get more people in there upstairs. Number 2, the fish are biting in our youth ministry. Unbelievable. Our women's ministry crowds out that space on the 2nd floor. That's why we need a room that can have 120 or so people in it as well. We use our physical building in so many different ways. In the last 4 weeks, the Eugene Police Department had training here for 4 days. Over 200 people were in our building from the Eugene Police Department. The 4J School District used it for early childhood training for employees. Dove Medical Clinic used our building twice for events. AAA, the building next to us, used our building for some of their stuff. We have hosted funerals for people who don't have a church as well. That's where the fish are biting. All of those things and even more. That's why we need to be concentrated on building bridges to where the fish are already biting. Fish wisely and use the right kind of bait. As a kid, I used to go fishing. Where I grew up, it was catfish. Salmon is better than catfish. Just telling you straight up. You have the choice at a restaurant, order salmon. But anyway, so we go fishing for catfish. And I'd be with my loved all my uncles, but I had one I really loved. Uncle Bethel was his name. And he smoked cigars when we went fishing. I still have this memory. I can still smell it. And he'd be casting for catfish, and he'd be smoking a cigar. And when it got down to the end, like the little butt of the cigar, he'd reel in and take the worm off the hook and put his cigar on the hook. And he would tell me, Steve, a catfish will bite anything. Just wait. You know what? He never caught a fish on a cigar. The dumbest thing in the world. I should email his kids today and remind them of this story. But anyway, so we use the right bait. You know what the right bait is? The grace of God. The grace of God. The unconditional love that God has for people. That's what you lead with. That's what you lead with. That is the bait. That is what we need to be communicating. That's what it's all about. The other thing you do when you fish is that you don't do anything to scare the fish. Stop throwing rocks right there. You tell your kids, don't skip the rocks here. That's where the fish are. So that's why at Grace we want to have an environment in which people can come and they feel welcome and they feel invited. So when you bring somebody who's a guest and I surface issues, hey, what was that stuff he was talking about? Well, let me explain it to you. Right? We want to have that kind of environment here as well. Grace Community Fellowship exists for a reason. To build bridges to people who are far away from God. There are 42,000 students from the 6th grade to the 12th grade in Lane County. Now, a friend of mine who works at a parachurch organization here in town, they called a bunch of churches, and he told me that out of all the churches they called, there are only 600 kids, 6th to 12th grade, who go to church. That's 1.5% of the teenage population. I don't know if that's exactly right, but even if you missed it by a factor of 2, that only means that 3% go. Do you kind of get the idea? And out of those 600, 100 of them come to our church. That's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. That's why we do these things. That's why we need to increase the size of our building, because we got a problem and it's urgent. We got to fix this, but together we can. We have a preschool here at Grace Community Fellowship. It reaches into the families. We have a lot of businesses around here, and so we have lots of people who they don't go to any church, but they're getting exposed because of the preschool from Monday through Friday. Our physical address here at this church is 989 Country Club Road. This is not a country club. It's not a country club, but a country club, you pay your dues, and then you get to go golf for free. You get to go eat for free. You get to use the swimming pool for free. You pay your dues. You just get, it's the exact opposite here. You sign up here, we give you a hard hat and a hammer, and we're all going to work. That's the difference. You got it? That's because together we're building a bridge. Bridges into our community. Sometimes I drive by a church building that is now a restaurant or a museum or an apartment complex, and I think, what happened? What happened there? They got their eye off the mission. No longer fishing for people, no longer building bridges. They're way off. And over time, caught up. Recently, I was reading a story about a place where they have a lighthouse. And the reason they have a lighthouse on the coast is because at this location they had a huge storm. 200, this is in the 1850s or something, 200 ships sank in one night. So it goes, oh, wow, that's... And it reminded me of a story. This story's so old it'll be new to everybody here. And here's the story. There was a community that was on the coast. A lot of ships went down. So they built a rescue center, which was basically a shack. And they put a couple rowboats and life preservers in there. And when ships were in distress, the people in the community would jump into those boats and go out and save people. They were very successful. It was everything to this community. We're in it together. Then they built some more boats, and then they realized they need to make the boathouse a little bit bigger. And then about 100 years later, just gradually, it became a restaurant. And saving people did not mean anything. That's a travesty. We don't want our church to be that way. We're about the business of God. That's what we're about. And we're all about not making that slightly thing where we go, oh, we lost our way. We no longer are saving people in lifeboats. And it's just a country club. That's not what it's about. Not whatsoever. We're about the business of God. Love people where they're at. Help them follow Jesus. And I'm going to be challenging you to be thinking about, how can I build a bridge to people around me? How can I join the church in building bridges and ministries into our community so that people who are far away from the love of Jesus Christ, who are broken and hurting, can find a place to find hope and healing? That's what we're about. And the very moment you see someone crossing the line of faith, crossing the living hope of Jesus, that living bridge, we're all going to rejoice together. And the people, the angels of heaven, are going to be celebrating. That's what we're about. And I'm challenging you to do this. Here's what I'm asking you to do today. Make a commitment to make a commitment. I don't know what that commitment is for you. Just make a commitment today. So I'm going to make a commitment to make a commitment with this thing. That's all I'm asking you to do. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we are so thankful that you built a bridge to us. And maybe you're here today and you went, I need to cross that bridge. Here's your moment. You can just tell Jesus, Jesus, I believe in you and I accept you as my Savior. You may be thinking, is there more? No, that's it. When I'm tired of going my own way, I want to put my faith in you. I believe in you. I need you. You can just pray that on your own. Welcome to the family. Heavenly Father, I pray that you'd help all of us at Grace Community Fellowship to be people who follow you intensely. And I pray, Heavenly Father, that you would help us to drop any impediment, any net that needs to be dropped. Maybe you need to do business with God for just a minute. Talk to him about the nets in your life. Lord, I pray that as a church you would help us to drop all nets that get in the way and give us the courage to build bridges. Give us the wisdom to build correctly. Lord, we rejoice because we know those efforts will be effective in seeing people cross the bridge to you. So God, I pray for success for our Bridges campaign, that we would be challenged together, that we would grow deeply together. And I pray this in the powerful name of the risen Savior of the universe, Jesus Christ. Amen.